Good morning.
CEO of Coastal Mississippi, our regional tourism board, and we're going to have just a interesting conversation about the current state of tourism in Coastal Mississippi and all the things that are going on and where we're headed.
Well, what I can tell you, Mark, is that on my way to Bay St. Louis, which we normally do every other weekend, my wife and I and my daughter, I found license plates from Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, you name it. Is people is coming. They love it here. As simple as that. They see this as a very different experience, as part of the overall experience of coastal Mississippi, and having this beautiful place, Bay St. Louis, and the entire coast here. It's phenomenal. Hancock County is very important in the overall experience for coastal Mississippi.
Absolutely. It was kind of interesting. Leslie and I actually spent some time here early this summer being tourists in our own backyard. I mean, a lot of us don't do that. I mean, we just don't actively engage in that. So we went to Centennial Plaza, spent a couple of nights, played in the water park, and I did exactly the same thing. I walked through the parking lot, checked to see where people are from, where they're coming in from, right? And I mean, it's just a crazy aspect of it. As we got into the pandemic, you went out and found some just amazing data about what was going to be important to people in terms of our health promise and what that was going to mean, and then also the focus on the drive market. Could you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, when when we started with everything with the pandemic, we took a very specific pause. All the staff, the commissioners, all the agencies, and we went back to the drawing board because we knew immediately this is a game changer. From now on things will change, exactly as when 9/11, traveling changed. So it was the same approach, and we did one thing, which was let's pay attention to the consumer. Let's listen to them, what they're saying. We have the economics, we have the trends, but from now on we need to listen to them. What are they going to do, or what they're thinking? So we pay special attention to them, and we were able to generate very important data. And they were saying there are some people that we will not travel right now. We don't want to risk it. But there was another significant group of people saying that if I find a place in which I feel safe and my family will be safe and I can enjoy a good time, I'm going to consider it. I'm not going to fly, but I'm going to drive.
That's right.
So we took everything and we crafted a very specific approach to those that were willing to travel. And at the end, you saw, and everybody saw, how we started to increase demand for visitation. And at the end, we came really strong as one of the top recovery destinations in the nation. In the nation.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually serve on the tourism board representing Hancock County. We have Nikki Moon serves on that board as well, Baytown Inn, Clay Wagner with Hancock Bank, and together we serve as the Hancock contingency on the regional tourism board. And it's just been amazing to look at the numbers of the nation. Last year, I think, due to COVID, was down, what, 30-40%?
At some point, it was 44% behind in terms of the overall revenue for the industry. In our case, Mark, as you know, 20%. At some point, our best, even though it's a negative number, but when you compare it to the rest of the nation, at some point we were like only 19% behind.
That's right.
Which was something that it was very encouraging to see.
I mean, it speaks to just kind of the nature of our demographic, the people that come in, our drive reach. I mean, we are centrally located, and our drive reach is huge. I mean, it goes from Houston to Nashville to Atlanta. I mean, and all points in between. And so we have this huge funnel to bring people into coastal Mississippi, and we've got some amazing amenities. And, I mean, we see it here in Hancock County with the Silver Slipper and John Ferrucci's group out there, running on that side. We're building new hotels here on a regular basis. We've got the Pearl right across the street from us here.
Exactly.
Just amazing stuff that's going on there.
And not only that, over that period, as you said, the Pearl opened right in the pandemic.
In the pandemic.
And it's a very successful, phenomenal facility. Other properties here, well established, having great summertime, and the forecast is very encouraging. But at the end, Mark, I think what we did as a group was to really pay attention to the consumers. Was key. That was the only, I mean, and we had, and our organization, we have data from very respected sources, and we follow that and we study that. But in this particular case, the consumer sentiment was the key. because it was a new chapter. Nobody knew what was going to be the reaction. So paying attention to the consumer helped us to decipher this new paradigm about where I'm going to go, when I'm going to travel, what I want to do, or what I will not do. So it was a very good exercise.
Yeah. No, it's been interesting to me to watch you work in this area and your absolute focus on data. As an engineer,
Mhm.
right? To me, it's all about the numbers. And the numbers just don't lie. They
Yes.
tell you exactly what's going on. And we talked about this a little bit in the past as well. Mississippi, the coastal Mississippi, accounts for 30% of tourism in the state of Mississippi.
Um, that's a big responsibility, but it's also one of the most important components of the strategic value of this part of Mississippi to the entire state. In the state, which tourism is the fourth largest industry, that accounts for in excess of $6 billion in economic impact. The fact that we have at least one third of all the visitor expenditures, the taxes generated, the jobs. Right now, Mark, even though with the pandemic, the largest segment in terms of growth, and this again, this is pre-pandemic, the number of jobs, private jobs was us tourism, supporting in excess of 33,000 jobs in the coast where we live, where we have like 400,000 people. So that's significant in the workforce. And what I see happening is that we'll come out really strong. The key will be how we bounce back from this point and how we continue, because we did everything to come back.
Yep.
It was a phenomenal exercise. We did it. But now it's not a matter of just we did it and that's it. How we pivot from this point and how we acquire more market share, how we solidify the presence of our existing stakeholders, how we attract new stakeholders. That will be the key, and that will shape or reshape the future of our industry in terms of economic impact, in terms of quality of life, in terms of quality of place. And I think we're poised for a phenomenal run for make a good contribution to our communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical, so often in the coast, and this is probably true in general in Mississippi, is that we focus and go, hey, look, last year we grew a little bit, and you go, yeah, I mean, that's great. How did everybody else do, right? How did your peers do? And if they grew more than you, or grew the same as you, then that growth is, I mean, that's just a rising tide floats all boat. And let's be honest, I mean, we're dealing with regional partners all across the country. I mean, I've traveled to Nashville, met with their economic development, tourism chamber, or other people, regional entity that actually services not just Nashville and the county of Nashville, but also the six surrounding counties. And you look at that regional approach and just how amazingly effective it is. I mean, regionalism like that is absolutely critical to success. Speaking with one voice in all the places. And one of the things I think that you did just absolutely amazing here more recently was, when we were, here we are, we're middle of the pandemic. We're slashing budgets, we're slashing positions, right? We're cutting pays, we're doing all the things, the defensive things to make sure that we're going to survive. And, the CARES Act money shows up, right? Shows up at the state. And you actually started working with the other DMOs in the state to be one voice to the state. Talk about that.
It was, I think, the key and how Mississippi, and certainly the coast, will move forward will be on that collaborational approach. That's key. The same as you're describing the regional approach for us between Hancock, Jackson, and Harrison. We need to take that a step further and think about that collaboration, kind of regionalism, but on state level. And what we did is every single DMO, we were going through the same situation. And the question was simple. Do we go individually to ask for the same, or we put a one voice, one proposal, and we go for something that will benefit everybody? And the answer was simple. And we were able to, in conjunction with phenomenal leadership across the state, and we have great leaders in tourism in this state. And we were able to talk to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the house. I have to tell you, the support we got from the Gulf Coast legislative delegation was key. I mean, that was the most important thing. We had such an important support. And at the end, we were able to maximize the CARES Act money, identifying a particular portion divided by a formula. Not I want this portion or Hattiesburg want this, a formula which everybody agreed. And obviously, being the third largest, I mean, obviously, we got a phenomenal amount.
Right.
And nobody thought we were going to be able to spend that money in 3 months, but we did it. So, and the results speak for themselves.
So, I mean, and it's one of the interesting things, some people can look at, so the CARES Act itself flowed money to the states. The states then had the ability to kind of divvy that up. But nowhere in the CARES Act formulas that were provided by the federal government to the states was tourism even mentioned. And it took some phenomenal leadership from you and your team to get together with the DMOs and go to the state with one voice, right? And go, hey, look, we've already agreed on how we're going to split up the money. This is how much money we think is appropriate and we can spend. And I was actually one of the guys. I mean, I like you calling me out like that, right? Because, and I don't know, because we got what, 3.4?
Yeah, 3.4.
So almost $3.5 million. Our average budget, the coastal Mississippi budget, about $4 million a year, a little bit more, but in that ballpark. And so we got $3.5 million that we had to spend by law in effectively, when it was all said and done, about 3 months, maybe almost 4 months if you give us 100% of that runway, but there's some closeout periods. And I was like, man, on a short staff, even on good times, spending $3.5 million would be hard for this organization. And now we've got to compress an entire year's budget into effectively 3 months. Your staff did an amazing job.
Oh, absolutely. We have phenomenal stuff, all the commitment, the knowledge that they have, the relationship they have with the stakeholders, with vendors, the way they handle our agencies, the way they executed the plan was, I mean, they are the true heroes behind this. They made this happen. Simple as that.
Absolutely. So I mean, post CARES Act, we're beyond that now. At the very end of that, they said, yeah, you can spend a little bit more of that money. And so a lot of people can look at it and go, man, some of that money may not have been spent as good as it could have been spent. And I think we would all agree with that, but we were under a short timeline. It had to be spent. And we did some really good things with it, right? There was a local campaign there to start engaging people in what coastal Mississippi was, to get the message of coastal Mississippi. Because I mean, this marketing campaign, this brand image that we have today, I mean, this was something you kicked off, just 2 years ago now, right?
Yes, in 2018, which is, for me, that was the right first step. It was to really identify and create a community built brand. When you want to portray communities, you need to get their input, so you know exactly what they are, what they feel, what they're proud of. And we did for 8 months. It took us 8 months, Mark, to do workshops in all the counties. We spoke with more than 150 stakeholders. They were part of this in the making of. And at the end, not by us, because at the end, when we had a brand, we went back to the market and tested again, because at the end, it's not about us, it's about them. And that's the source and the origin of coastal Mississippi, the secret coast. And once we had that, we start elevating and creating additional opportunities for the brand. And we started immediately, and we saw how the brand started to bring more visitors. And then we had the water intrusion, and then we had like 4 hurricanes in and out, and then we have COVID. But besides that, we've been able to maintain a good awareness level of coastal Mississippi, validated by numbers, and then visitation. I mean, you see the people every day, every weekend, and we, even though we have data, I normally call hotels, I call restaurants. Hey, how are you doing? Say, I'm having the best month of the year, and we're seeing that trend. But the key will be, we cannot think that we're done.
That's right.
Now is when we need to really
This is just
learn from this, and how we pivot to really transform into what the new, because it's going to be new. I mean, people is going to think differently when they are saying, I'm going to travel. So how you, as a destination, you engage with them in a different level, in a different conversation, providing the content, providing the engagement opportunities, so they can commit to you and become loyal and become regular visitors. And that's the new frontier for us as destination marketing organizations. How are we going to engage with them? How are we going to factor in the local community into all of this, So they know we're doing this on behalf of the communities, and then we get that loyalty and that visitation factor from the region that we're good at.
Yeah, I think it's a critical thing. And that local support, the local buy-in to that marketing campaign and the messaging that's going on. I mean, and I think Nashville's a great example of this. Everybody on the planet, I mean, on the planet knows that Nashville, Tennessee is Music City. And when I went and spoke to Nashville, Tennessee, they're like, yeah, man, we had some really, really bad problems. When we started kicking that campaign off, everybody thought of us as hee haw. And I was like, man, I'd even forgotten about that. And they had done such a great job of simply saying, hey, look, we already had this huge music component, and they just built that up and said, hey, look, we're going to own that. And now Music City, it shows up on the back of every truck in Nashville, and tourism, and that's not even a number one component of their economy. It's like number five. But even so, right? And so coastal Mississippi, I've loved the fact that you've engaged in the data component of this so aggressively. When we were going through that marketing campaign and building and figuring out whether that's going to be Secret Coast or something else, I mean, there was a huge data component, and there were a lot of us that felt very strongly that something a little bit more campy, a little bit more comfortable to us and who we are as being the hospitality state would probably be a little bit better. But we went to the customers, right? We went and reached out to customers and said, which of these is more likely to make you actually spur you to action?
Exactly.
And I love the fact that you actually took that additional step and said, hey, look, we got these options. And it wasn't just the board making this decision. We actually went to the customers and said, how do you feel? And then more recently with CARES Act funding, you also engaged the community, Southern Mississippi, right? We engaged with them to do a survey on the locals. I mean, what were the findings out of that in terms of?
And that's for us and for any destination, across America, across the world, we're dealing with what it's called over tourism, which is called visitors management. That's the term, which is communities in their own right. They want to keep certain level of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And in some instances, the amount of visitors coming is disrupting that balance. So for us, it's important, especially for coastal Mississippi, which we have, let's say, Bay St. Louis. This is a very beautiful and very specific community.
Yeah.
So do you think we can bring 1 million people a year here? It's going to destroy Bay St. Louis or Ocean Springs. So it's our responsibility to make sure we find that right balance so we can fine tune in terms of visitation and in terms of growth. So we did this local sentiment report in conjunction with the University of Southern Mississippi. And at the end, in the nation, 65% of the people, of the residents, are saying they are okay with the growth of tourism. In our case, it's 93%. 93% of our residents, and we did this study it was more than 2,100 people, all demographics included. 93% of them are saying we want more tourism for the coast. Yeah. And we're willing to engage into that because we see the value not only in the economic impact, but as well in the enhancement of the quality of life for us here in the coast. And that is something that I hope that the elected officials, they pay attention, because if you want feedback about your local residents, they're telling you, we're willing to back you up when you're talking about making better decisions for tourism. And I think that's something that it's fixed so highly about how important tourism for our coast is. And the other good thing is that 92% of that sample, they know who we are. They know who coastal Mississippi is, and they understand why we're here. It's to promote this regional approach. It's to make sure people understand that when they come to coastal Mississippi, they don't know if they're in Biloxi or Bay St. Louis, or they don't know if they're in Jackson County. Honestly, they don't care, with all the respect. They came here to have a great time.
The customer does not care.
Yeah, so they might see a sign, from Gulfport to Biloxi or from Waveland to Bay St. Louis, but at the end, they didn't come here to do that. They just come here to explore the benefits and the emotional benefits of our brand for them or their families. And that's what is important.
I want to talk just a little bit about budgets at coastal Mississippi, where those have been historically and where they're headed, and the things that you've done to really focus in on that. So a couple of things I want you to touch in on. So, I mean, historically, the budget at Coastal Mississippi has been in the $4 million range, a little bit more than that, but
4.5, $5 million. That's, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you could say 4 to 5. It's a safe.
somewhere in there for many, many years. This year, Coastal Mississippi, our budget's going to be
With the regular occupancy tax, which is the main source,
Yep.
which is the 2% or 2.25% collected at the hotels, plus the other revenue we've been getting from CARES Act and EDA, Economic Development Administration. Mark, I think we're going to be around $7 million. $7 million.
$7 million.
Yes.
So in the span of a couple of years, right? Coastal Mississippi went out, got just an amazing CEO who's built an amazing team that is focused in on not just hotel tax, but also other sources, right? I mean, you've been working with the Department of Revenue. So I mean, one of the things that early on is that you noticed that there's a reporting called STR, and they say, hey, look, this is what the hotels in our area did for business last month. And then you would look at what was coming in from the Department of Revenue and go, something doesn't add up here. And so you've been working with the Department of Revenue on that?
Actually, yes. As a matter of fact, and again, from Hancock County, Clay Wagner, our commissioner, we started, I think like 2 years ago, Clay and I, we went to the DOR and we brought some data, and we told them, listen, this is the theory we have. If we're wrong, let us know and we'll stay back. But numbers doesn't make sense. There is some indications that the overall size of the market is this one. Based on that, we should be getting this number. We just want to find out if that is our assumptions are correct or not. So obviously, this is a very important, type of conversation. It's taking time. We have revisited this, and I think we're moving forward in the right direction. And I think this was going to help us not only to get more revenue, but also to help some other destinations as well that might be going through something like this. In every single destination, Mark, I have seen this all over. There's always some sort of a gap in the collection.
That's right.
And I think it's for us not to blame or to say you're doing it wrong, but to bring some data that they will take into consideration and get to some conclusions. So far, I think, and this is what Clay and some other commissioners as well are thinking, we have provided them with enough and very important information so they can revisit. And we should see, I'm very confident that we should see an increase. So when you put that plus the additional revenue we're getting into the visitors, so we're getting more visitors.
That's right.
They're counting the money and a little bit different.
Yep.
So those are results of the organization that at the end help us in our bottom line, which is how much money we get every month.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's about the amount of money that we have available to us to advertise, to market this destination to visitors that are, outside the area. And recently, man, to me, it's just so powerful because, Hancock County is a great example. We just don't have that many hotels. I mean, a third of our county is swamp and wetlands, right? A third of our county is Stennis buffer zone. And so we really are packed into a real thin little sliver here on the south side and on the east side of the county. And so we just don't have the hotels that a lot of places have. Now, on the other hand, we've got lots of amenities. We've got Bay St. Louis, we've got Silver Slipper, right? We've got Diamond Head, we've got up where I'm at in the Kill, right? We've got some ecotourism components show up there, right? We've got beautiful rivers, we've got all these things. We just don't have the hotels. And so, historically, Hancock County would generate, call it $200,000 a year in hotel tax that we would fund our tourism efforts on. Well, by the time you pull out, overhead expenses and salaries and copy machines and all the things that got to happen, we were spending $40,000 a year on tourism and on inviting people in. And then, from a regional standpoint, we can take that $200,000, drop it into an organization like Coastal Mississippi. It flows all the way through to the bottom line. There's no additional overhead that Coastal Mississippi encounters for spending an extra $200,000. And so, if you look at the budget for Coastal Mississippi, the marketing budget runs about $2 million. And so we get to augment that 10%. We become 10%. Jackson County, same kind of thing, right? They're putting in $600,000-$700,000, maybe $800,000, right? Just depending. And so between us, Jackson County and Hancock County on the bookends here get to actually fluff up the marketing budget, right, for Coastal Mississippi by almost 50%. And so to me, each of us individually are not nearly as strong as all of us together.
That's the key. And again, once you have this type of opportunities, for example, we have done phenomenal promotion with Expedia. Expedia is the largest online travel agency in the world. And together, as Coastal Mississippi, we've been able to enter into cooperative type of agreements, benefiting all the properties across the coast. You know how much it's going to cost to do it just for Hancock or Jackson or Harrison or just a few hotels? It might be not even possible. But when you have this type of approach in which a centralized professional organization like Coastal Mississippi, with the right talent in place, approach this type of vendors, worldwide type of vendors, and you get with this type of deals, then you see the benefit. And you have people going through those type of distribution system that will come to Bay St. Louis or maybe Ocean Springs, or they will stay in Gulfport or Pascagoula. Do it individually, it's going to be more expensive and less effective.
That's a critical thing. Milton, we talked about a lot of stuff here this morning. The last thing that was kind of on my list is I had an interesting conversation with Nancy DeFrio the other day and Michael Rizzo completely separately in Diamond Head. And both of them were absolutely singing your praises. They said, hey, look, we're getting these reports out of coastal Mississippi that help us market our economic development here. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about, let's be honest. There are 15 municipalities on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, right? There are 3 county governments, and then there are 12 city governments currently across the Gulf Coast. And everyone I've talked to has said exactly the same thing. I know it's got to take up a lot of your time, but talk a little bit about building those relationships.
That's key. You cannot. We have our counties, and they have certain scope, and you talk to them. But at the end, Mark, the person which is the closest to our stakeholders is the mayor of each city. They own and they hold that key, and you need to provide them with the information and data so they can make informed decisions for their people. And I love that. I think one of the first meetings of the new mayor in Diamond Head was with me. I've been meeting with them, with Mike. They're a great team.
Yep.
And it's amazing because maybe if you talk about tourism, Diamond Head is not the first name to come to your mind. But I can tell you, for Mike and the mayor, they do believe in tourism, and they're taking the necessary steps to improve the possibilities of Diamond Head within this big pile of opportunities in tourism. And but the key is to provide them with the data, and they could use it however they want it. They need to know how many people is coming. I share with them, hey, mayors, in terms of restaurants, this is the overall expenditure. In terms of lodging, this is, so they know. And when those stakeholders go to them, hey, mayor, what's going on? They have the data, and they can share that with them, and they can enter into good conversation. And at the end, Mark, investments always comes by the cities. And you need to put the mayors in a position to engage in a good conversation with potential investors that they know their business, and they have the data to support a potential investor or not. And besides, our mayors are fun. They are good mayors, it's good to be with them. So I can tell you, I do have a good relationship with each and every one of them. They call me, I call them, whatever they need, we're there. The same for the state legislators, the supervisors across the coast, because at the end they are responsible for the public policy, and we as a subdivision, political subdivision, we need to work hand in hand with them to make sure this is a joint venture.
That's right. You touched on a concept there that has been interesting to me as well. Is and you see this in a lot of these regional DMOs, right? We think about these as being destination marketing organizations, but there's a switch going on right now to move these from marketing organizations to management organizations, and providing that data to cities allows them to make informed decisions on where to put their money, how to change zoning, how to influence, right, and create the right kind of amenities that continue to attract people. Talk just briefly on DMOs as
That's
destination
that's a big trend that is happening not only in our region, which is so competitive, but in the nation and in the world. Um, the way you organize the data, the way you organize your possibilities, and when you can go to a one-stop shop, that helps. And DMOs, or destination marketing slash management organization, we could become that source of information, of all sorts of information, for social development, for economic development, for tourism, visitation, uh, the pride, engagement with the society and the community. And I think in our case, with the support we're seeing from the communities, from the regular people, 81% of the people that participated in our last survey are not from the tourism industry. So this is regular residents of the coast. They're saying, I like what is happening. I like what the numbers, I really want to see this growing. So if they can identify an organization, which they did, saying that 92% they know what we are and what we do, I think it's going to help us tremendously to carry the message and talk to different type of audiences. Talk to the bank, talk to the universities, talk to the government, local government, and bring into one particular conversation the potential growth and future of the community, not only for tourism, but for enhancing the quality of life and quality of place of the coast.
Quality of life. It is a critical component of what makes the coast special, and maintaining the buy-in of the local community is making sure that the tourism efforts don't offset the quality of life that we all have. And I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, right? So, I mean, Liz and I play tourist a little bit in our backyard. Man, we struggle to get reservations at restaurants here lately.
Exactly.
And there's two pieces of that, right? And some of it's changing in terms of getting more people back to work. And we're on the cusp of really having a significant impact on that and getting people back to work. But man, just maintaining that quality of life and maintaining the welcoming atmosphere that the coast is known for.
And Mark, and this is something I have seen in many examples across the coast. But the key to our success will be to allow ourselves to think a little bit different.
Yeah.
What brought the coast to this point doesn't necessarily mean that it's what we need to take it to the next level. We need to pay tribute. We need to be thankful to everything, to people and efforts that took us to this point. But we need to be humble enough and open-minded to see that the challenges that we're facing requires different leadership and different type of approach. And if we can, together, on a collaborative basis, do that, I can assure you, the success of the coast, we cannot even imagine it.
Absolutely. Milton Segarra, CEO of Coastal Mississippi. Appreciate you being here with us today.
It was a pleasure.
Obviously, I'm a fan of yours. Appreciate all that you've done for Coastal Mississippi, and really end to end. So do we have some questions maybe?
So Mark, you need your own show. Seriously, the Mark Henderson Show. What a great job you have done. So informative. Hi, everybody. Tish Williams, Chamber. Milton, thank you for coming over and being part of this today. I do have a couple of questions that came in from the audience. And one of them is, it sounds like the secret is out. Okay, now that the economy is opening up, where are we going from here? And are we going to continue to market ourselves as the Secret Coast, or do you have another marketing plan?
No, for the time being, the Secret Coast is our brand. As any brand, there is some evolution that we need to pay attention to. But right now, we still have a lot of secrets that we need to to share. But at the end, people is and Tish, we have discussed this. Every time we bring a client or a visitor, they said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you have this here." It could be related to the beautiful small inns that we have, or the beautiful gaming opportunities. They could go. I mean, they could go here to Bay St. Louis, then drive 5 minutes and go to Silver Slipper and have a different experience in Hancock that happens across the coast. But still, there are so many things that we need to share with the world, and and the Secret Coast still fits into that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Go ahead. Sorry, Tish.
no, I was going to say to that end, we have a lot of small businesses, obviously, that make up the tourism product. What do our businesses need to know to make sure that their businesses benefit from the work that you and your staff are doing?
That's great. And we normally every month we distribute some newsletter and information, but again, we need as much as possible those business owners to be part of what we do. We love to get the feedback, Tish. We're not afraid of criticism. We love it, actually. That's the only way to improve. And the more information we get, those facts will help us to tweak and redirect specific efforts. Sometimes you have to do big efforts for a bigger scope, but sometimes for smaller destinations or smaller partners, we need to do different type of things. The key is this: please reach out to us. We want to work hand in hand with everybody. We learn so much every day with the feedback from we are experts in destination marketing. We don't own a business. You do. You tell us what you need and we'll make it happen. We'll communicate it. We'll make the necessary steps to make sure we increase demand for your services, that you become part of a more profitable, industry in your area. Because at the end, economic impact is the number one driver for the actions that we do. We want to make sure our stakeholders are successful, profitable, that they can grow, reinvest, and keep growing. And that's a sequence that we need to work together.
Let me build on that just briefly. So Coastal Mississippi also has invested in a variety of training. And there are ways that local businesses can engage with Coastal Mississippi to train their staff, to also educate their staff about all the things that are available on the coast, right? So we have all of these secrets, all of these little things. And one of the things that we struggle with is that you go talk to, the front line is always wait staff, right? I mean, these are the people who are touching customers on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things we need to do is to get them trained up so that when someone says, hey, look, what's good to do with the kids at 3 o'clock on a Saturday? Well, you got IMMS and you've got these kinds of things. We've got eco tours over here and those kinds of things. And so the businesses can reach out to Coastal Mississippi, engage with them. There are people there that can actually help direct and help educate your staff.
And by the way, Tish, if anybody that is paying attention now and listen to us, go to our website and go to Coast Champions. That's the industry program that we have, what Mark was saying. You can complete that. You will get a certification as an expert in coastal Mississippi. It's easy. It will take only 2 hours to complete this particular certification, and it's going to help you to improve and enhance your knowledge about coastal Mississippi. And that's another way to engage with us as coastal Mississippi destination marketing organization for the coast.
And also, I would think they need to go to your website to make sure that any listings that you have, businesses, a calendar of events, all of those things that are on your website, to make sure that information is up to date with their businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. The listings changes sometimes on a daily basis. So anyone that you go to our website, if you see something that is not accurate, let us know. We'll change it immediately. If you want to add additional information, we'll do it as well. There is no cost for you. We'll do that as a part of our services. So we just want to make sure we have the right information for the right audiences when they are searching for information.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Mark Henderson, Clay Wagner, Nikki Moon, thank you for serving on the commission to represent Hancock County. It's all volunteer, and y'all have done it so well for Hancock County. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing y'all again. This was a great update. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.